This is one of the first large wind farms in the state of Hawaii at South Point on the Big Island. The lack of federal and state support is evident from the condition of this installation.
I think my father's inspiration for renewable energy and hydrogen specifically all relates to one central theme, and that central theme is world peace. His theory was that if parties work together in joint ventures, it's less likely that they're going to fight in conflicts and war. And energy is, I think, another example of how my father was focused on world peace. And specifically, as you know, Hawaii is about 90% dependent on foreign oil.
Let's not forget that if it weren't for these wonderful things that we call trade winds, we'd be just like LA. Every single day our mistakes get blown away. Our abuses get blown away. They go somewhere else. But somewhere is finite also. It's going somewhere. It's not going away.
It's a heartbreak as an educator here to see the best and the brightest. They have to make a choice between living in Hawaii or going to the mainland and being a scientist. They just do not see any opportunities here. I get lots of them that even after they go to graduate school, they write me back and they ask me, is there any high tech in the state? Is there anything they could do where it would fit in? And the answer is no, unless they want to, run a tour bus or, dance the hula for tourists or something.
Last night we were at a dinner party at a high-rise apartment building overlooking the city, a bit up on the hills, and we watched the sun go down and the lights come on, and there sprawling below us was really all of Honolulu, I think, and there was traffic on all the streets, bright lights everywhere, and every bit of that, of course, was running on imported oil. And I was looking at this and thinking, is this revolution really going to happen in our lifetime? Are these new devices, fuel cells, really going to start replacing this internal combustion engine in the next 10, 20 years? And I'm here to make the case that I think they will.
Put your headsets on? Okay. Does that sound like a lot of energy is being expended? I got some, boy, do I have an energy story for you. From the House of Representatives, we welcome as our guest this segment, Representative Mina Morita. She is chair of the House Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection. Your guest is author Dr. Tom Koppel. The book is called Powering the Future. We need, in an island economy, just not because we're isolated, but we have such limited resources when it comes to fuel. We need energy. So tell me, first of all, how you discovered our guest and what's going on at the state level to pioneer and to continue this sort of research into what we're going to do for our energy needs in Hawaii.
Last year, the legislature considered, well, a major portion of my committee work was focused on renewable energy, and I was trying to push through this policy called Renewable Portfolio Standards. And there was a lot of opposition from like the utility companies because they don't consider most renewable energy like solar and wind as firm power. So in reading up over, after session was out and in reading up on the issue and stuff, you know, what we needed to find is something that you could store energy. And of course we have batteries, but you know, they might not be the best way of storing power. So I started reading up on hydrogen, and it was like, wow, this is, you know, hydrogen as energy currency.
I need to learn about that, because obviously we're going to get there in a second, but I think that the need, the ongoing need, almost the demand placed on you by the citizenry and by economics and everything else is to not just talk about this, but to do something about it.
Right.
So where are we going to go now that we know a little bit more about this? What are we going to do? Are we going to research? Are we going to spend some money? Are we going to do some testing? What's the next step?
No, we got to make the commitment. We have to have the political will to make the changes. And, you know, if you look over the last 30, 40 years, our use of renewable energy, which used to be a lot, you know, 30 years ago, is in decline. And basically because oil is available, it's, you know, 18 months ago it was pretty cheap.
But we can get it.
Yeah, yeah.
Now you look at the pump, what's happening.
Right.
It's awful.
Right. And you know, you look at the political situation, what's happening in the Middle East. You know, we know fossil fuel is a finite resource. What we're grumbling about is when we're going to run out of it. But we know we're going to run out, whether it's 5 years or 40 years, you know.
Yeah. Death and taxes and fuel.
Yeah.
Interesting. And that must be a very difficult thing for our guest with Representative Morita, Dr. Tom Koppel, to handle, because this is a man that's been involved in this for a long time. He's a freelance journalist and author, and he is doing a public talk called Fuel Cell Technology. And I met Dr. Koppel very briefly just before we came on the air, and we find out that this technology, we've known about this for a long time, the Ballard Fuel Cell. It must be, Dr. Koppel, kind of frustrating to be where you are and knowing that this technology is available, it is something that can work, and that it is not being more widely accepted and developed.
Yeah. Well, it is actually coming on fairly fast now. That's the encouraging thing. I first saw this technology, I think now 11 years ago, when it was just in a laboratory in a small town called North Vancouver, British Columbia. Just on the bench, a little device, kicking out an awful lot of power. It was impressive because it was silent, it was clean, you could put your hand on it and there's only a little bit of warmth. So I knew then that this was a great thing and that it would eventually win out. Since then, the large auto companies have gotten in on what is really amounting to a race to put these things on the road.
One of the things that we have to understand is why the automobile industry is interested in fuel cells, and that's political decisions made in California. The California Air Resources Board set a goal to have what do you call it, zero emission vehicles on the road. Yeah. You know, in California itself.
Look what we've done.
I'm John Wallace, and I'm Executive Director of Ford's Think Group and Chairman of the California Fuel Cell Partnership Steering Committee. It's my great pleasure to be here today to celebrate the grand opening of the partnership's headquarters here in West Sacramento. This 55,000 square foot facility provides a base for our fuel cell vehicles, including a state-of-the-art hydrogen fueling station. The facility is a symbol of our commitment to the partnership's goals of demonstrating fuel cell technology, building the infrastructure to fuel these vehicles, and educating the public about their benefits. This partnership was started 18 months ago with 2 automobile manufacturers, the California Air Resources Board, a fuel cell supplier, and 3 fuel providers. The fact that we have grown to include all of the major stakeholders, the California and federal government, the world's automakers, technology providers, key energy suppliers, and even a cooperative relationship with environmental organizations, speaks to the enthusiasm and energy in support of our objectives. Fuel cell technology offers the potential to simultaneously solve three problems: provide our customers with the function and utility that they expect in their vehicles, provide society with fuel-efficient powertrains, and provide zero-emission mobility. The automobile is the success story of the 20th century. If we want to have a similar success story in the 21st century, we must develop environmentally sustainable transportation technologies to meet the needs of a developing world.
The fuel cell has essentially unlimited range because you just refuel it. So eventually, when we have enough fueling stations in place, and this could be in the first stages in California, it may be methanol stations. Actually, it would just be adding a methanol tank to enough gas stations so that you could go between cities. You would simply fill up with methanol, the liquid fuel. Eventually, you may fill up with compressed hydrogen in some form. Japan is looking more seriously at that. As far as buses are concerned, they're actually going to be on the market even sooner. 2002, the first Daimler Chrysler buses, and Iceland, this was interesting because Mina mentioned that Iceland placed, I think, the first order for several of these. They will run on compressed hydrogen. There were demonstration buses for several years in Vancouver and in Chicago, and they ran on compressed hydrogen in tanks on the roof of the bus. And they, well, it's perfectly clean, and I mean, in Vancouver, for example, the power comes from hydroelectricity for the most part, and so that was absolutely a clean fuel cycle. You're making the hydrogen from a clean energy source, you're compressing it, putting it into the tank on the bus, and it's running. I went on that bus, it was wonderful, but the thing was, now there, you can, the bus comes back to its depot at night, so it's very simple.
And that can replug.
Yeah, and fleets, actually fleets are where I believe,
is the easiest
yeah,
way
and
to
that's where it's
get
really
to
going to start. I think the first thousands of fuel cell cars will also be bought up by fleets, by governments, for example.
My name is Chris Lithgow. I'm the Senior Vice President of Service Support for Coast Mountain Bus Company. I look after all the technical support requirements to keep the buses on the road. Basically fleet and facilities maintenance, information systems, materials control, and vehicle engineering. For the last 5 years, I have been directly involved with the Ballard P3 project. And in 1996, I took over the chairmanship of the joint Ballard, then BC Transit Project Steering Committee, and have been chairing that committee ever since. As a bit of background, the province of British Columbia became involved with fuel cell buses as early as 1990 and partnered with Ballard at that time to develop the airport shuttle that was demonstrated down at LAX. I believe starting in 1991. We then partnered with them to develop a Phase 2 bus, which basically rolled out in about 1995, and we helped integrate the fuel cell system into that bus and provided some technical assistance from a bus company point of view. In 1996, the provincial government approved a partnering agreement again for a Phase 3 demonstration project between BC Transit, Ballard, and the provincial government. That was the genesis of the project that we've been running for the last almost 2 years now. The objectives of the project were to actually prove that the fuel cell technology could be used in actual transit revenue service. And that was one of the primary goals. The other goals obviously were to learn how to work with fuel cells and also how to maintain fuel cell systems and work with fuel cell systems in a hydrogen environment. The project itself has proven that fuel cells can work in transit use. Indeed, it's probably a good application of the technology where you have a central maintenance system and a fueling system for a fleet application. In terms of fuel, we've been using pure hydrogen to fuel our buses. The hydrogen is generated through an electrolysis process using the Stewart Energy electrolysis plant. For our application with 3 buses, I have to say that the fueler has worked extremely well. We have never had a failure that has affected our ability to fuel the buses, and we've always got the buses out on schedule when they have been scheduled for service. So the reliability of the fueler has been exceptional from our point of view, and I think has contributed largely to the success of the project. We were quite I guess, tentative about bringing hydrogen onto the site and using it in such an application. But really the support that Stewart Energy has given the project and the performance of the fueler itself has shown that you can work with hydrogen, and you can work with hydrogen very safely. And it has been very reliable from our point of view. We've been blessed here in British Columbia with an abundant source of very clean hydroelectric power, which makes the use of this type of source of energy very applicable from an environmental point of view. And the ability to convert basically elements that are readily available into usable hydrogen to provide motive power is just extremely exciting, and I think one that we as society can benefit from in the long term. The source of the energy obviously is a major challenge facing us today. And the infrastructure will have to be put in place to provide a reliable and clean source of hydrogen if we're going to benefit from the fuel cell technology itself.
This is a Phase 3 heavy-duty fuel cell engine. It's 205 kilowatts, 275 horsepower. It runs on pure hydrogen gas. The fuel cells themselves are on either side in the engine compartment. There are 20 fuel cell stacks in this particular engine with 75 cells per stack. So there's a total of 1,500 fuel cells that make up this engine, this Phase 3 engine. The center section in the middle is the air delivery system. As I said, we put in pure hydrogen gas into the fuel cells as well as ambient air, just pressurized to match the pressure of the hydrogen gas. And out comes nothing but warm, moist air, pure water, and a whole lot of electricity. All the tubing in the middle is strictly delivery and removal of water, air, and hydrogen. It may look a little complicated, but it's really not. This engine is in 4 quadrants, and to each quadrant you have to deliver and remove the water, the air, and the hydrogen. So the 6 basic lines are just repeated 4 times. On the Phase 4 engine, which is the heavy-duty engine, fuel cell engine you can buy today, you don't see very much of that plumbing at all anymore. Most of that is gone. Plus, there's only 8 stacks instead of 20 in that engine. It's a lot lighter, a lot more efficient. And as I said, that's the engine that's available for purchase now. And again, uses nothing but pure hydrogen gas as the fuel. And I guess the interesting part about the relationship between these buses and Stewart Energy fueler is at nighttime we take hydroelectricity and city water and break it down into its basic components of hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen we keep, the oxygen we release into the atmosphere, and the kept hydrogen gets pumped on board the buses. So the buses have storage, hydrogen gas storage in the roof. Then they go out during the daytime and they combine hydrogen and oxygen to make water and electricity. Very clean, very pure, very simple system, closed loop.
The biggest question, of course, really is where does the fuel come from? Hydrogen does not exist on Earth as a free gas that we can access easily. There's no place that we can just tap into it. We can't mine it. We can't drill for it. It combines so readily with other elements that basically you don't have hydrogen in its free form, gaseous hydrogen. So you have to get your hydrogen from something. And you can get hydrogen, and most industrial hydrogen today comes from natural gas. And so you can get it, but then you're getting it, of course, from a fossil fuel. And this is not the absolute magic bullet. This is not the perfect clean energy cycle that we would really all hope for at some point in the future, but it may be a long transitional necessity, and especially for things like stationary fuel cells, which are already in commercial application and more coming online very quickly. These will run certainly for the first few decades on natural gas primarily. And so the natural gas, the hydrogen is taken out of the natural gas, and you do have some emissions. You particularly have carbon dioxide emissions. Now, think about the earlier discussion that what I mentioned about the hydrogen coming in on one side and the oxygen on the other. There is no carbon dioxide produced, no greenhouse gases. But if you get your hydrogen from a fossil fuel like natural gas, you have carbon dioxide. Now, it's actually still cleaner and less polluting than taking that natural gas and creating electricity from it in other ways.
Hydrogen is used in a variety of different applications and markets. The typical application for this type of a product is for the flow glass industry, the semiconductor industries, and metal industries, among others. They use hydrogen to create specific atmospheres to maintain a certain quality of material. The technology that is used in this particular product is called partial oxidation. Partial oxidation takes a feedstock such as natural gas and partially oxidizes it or partially burns it. The gas and the air come into this unit. It is mixed and then heated up to a very high temperature, and at that point the natural gas then breaks apart into various different constituents, including hydrogen and carbon monoxide. And that's all done in this patented technology called the UOB. The gases then leave the UOB reformer and go through a cooling device or a water quench. This water quench brings the temperature down to approximately 650 degrees Fahrenheit. That gas, or known as syngas, then goes to the next basic reactor that we have, which is called the high temperature shift reactor. That high temperature shift reactor then converts the hydrogen and carbon monoxide and water into additional hydrogen and carbon dioxide. So then the hydrogen, carbon dioxide, small amounts of carbon monoxide then leave and are cooled in a cooler. That cooled gas then goes to the next process, which is called pressure swing absorption, and that takes the gas from about 30% hydrogen and then converts it up to about 99.95% pure hydrogen. Another very interesting application for this is to use this type of product to create hydrogen for refueling stations for fuel cell applications and other applications that are environmentally driven.
I've said for a number of years that hydrogen is closer to a fluid electricity than it is to a chemical feedstock. And I think that sometime in the century's future we'll find out exactly how true that is. Hydrogen and electricity have many things in common, and where they differ they seem to be more complementary than fighting each other. So as an electric utility, we see a great future for hydrogen, and we want to be able to promote its development and use in any way that seems reasonable within our ability to do business. We've got over 7 megawatts of photovoltaics that have been installed in Sacramento. Environmental stewardship or responsibility runs really deep in Sacramento and at SMUD. A lot of people date our present renewables programs and so forth to the time of the shutdown of the Rancho Seco nuclear power plant. That's not true. Our first large photovoltaics arrays went into operation 5, 6, 7 years before the Rancho Seco was shut down. And the interest in renewables in Sacramento started decades ago. So it runs deep. This is a picture of a PC-25 phos acid. They've been around a long time. What a wonderful piece of machinery. It's a beautifully integrated system, I have to say that. I'm a mechanical engineer, wouldn't you know? Only a mother could love this thing. They really are. And this is a picture of one that we put in 1994 at a Kaiser hospital about 15 miles from here. And you can see that, well, it turns out there's not a hospital bed behind that particular window, but if I had taken the picture going that way, you'd see that there's hospital beds right around here. So this thing operated for 24 hours a day within sight of people who had the kind of HMO I have. The other guys, I got to see the sunsets. So, but this is a tremendously sensitive environment. I mean, you think about it. They couldn't have run their backup generators, their diesels, for all that time, or a standard turbine. It stinks, for one thing. And when things start stinking, you know that there's some criteria pollutants in there somewhere, don't you? But they could run this thing 24 hours a day. What a wonderful thing. What a wonderful thing. Here's another one. We had 2 of these things that we had installed. This one was a cogen. This one, there's the PC-25 there. This is the radiators that would get rid of the excess heat. This was a simple cycle, no cogen. And we had it hooked up to this building. And it was base loaded, so you really couldn't see any load following with it. But we had it out there on display, and we got quite a few people to come by and take a look at it. And it's not much to look. It's like all these electrical things. They're not much to look at. They just make electrons. But that thing worked. We put that in also in the spring of '94. And this one operated for almost 33,000 hours before we shut it down. This one, we ran for 40,260 hours. And that was over, well, we put it in the spring of 1994, May of '94, and we shut it down in January of this year. So that's like about a 92% online availability. Its overall efficiency net on a higher heating value was 50.97%. That includes the use of the cogen heat. On a simple side, if you just looked at the electrical generation, it was 31% efficient, higher heating value again, which is pretty doggone good.
You know, just as we look at Hawaii as being a crossroads for possible expansion, Mina, for high tech, we also look at this other opportunity. And once again, I want to go back to something I said earlier in the segment is, what are the stumbling blocks, if any, do you see? You said stepping up. We've got to step up.
Right.
What's it going to take? Is it going to take, obviously it's going to take dollars. Where are the dollars going to come from?
Well, and that's why earlier I talked about sending out the right market signals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are out there looking. We just have to make the commitment to move in this direction, the political will.
Mm-hmm. For instance, we make Hawaii friendly financially to a company that's going to pioneer more development in this area. We give them breaks. We encourage them to come, bring their brain trust, and come out over here and do their experimenting and their development here.
Right, and that's what we're trying to do in the high-tech sector.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said earlier, we just have to recognize that this is an important part of the high-tech sector. The other thing that we have to look at is what regulations are standing in the way from moving into this direction. You know, obviously, the Public Utilities Commission, I mean, that kind of regulatory structure deals with old economy methods. We're moving to a new economy, so we either have to update the structure or maybe even dismantle it.
This is the Kauai electric plant. We're on the west side of the island of Kauai. The plant produces just under 100 megawatts of power from oil-fired generators, which represents the bulk of the power used by the entire island.
How do we lead the charge for this ourselves? How do we in Hawaii say, okay, look, we're going to pick up the thing and we're going to run with a lot of things. We're going to pick up environmentally. President Clinton, under controversy, just declared our reef system a reserve, a preserve, a monument, if you will. And we're encouraging high tech. We're trying to make these big portals so that the entire high tech world can come here. How are you going to get the message to the legislature that we have an opportunity to act on here?
Well, first of all, we have to send out the right market signals to get the private monies in here. And in order to send out the right market signals, we have to have the political will to move in this direction. Right now, there's a lot of hidden cost in oil. We got people fighting in the Middle East, but those kinds of factors aren't factored into the price of oil. The other thing is, when we look at renewable energy, hey, that's money that we're keeping in our economy. We can create jobs. We can get the money recirculating within our economy instead of sending it out to Indonesia, to Australia, China, areas that we buy our fossil fuel from.
There's an outfit in Geneva called Petro Consultants. Petro Consultants is run by a couple of people, Colin Campbell and Jean Laharia. And Colin Campbell spent much of his career as the head of exploration for BP when it was called British Petroleum. As you might know, they're now called Beyond Petroleum for obvious reasons. But he ran their exploration activities. Laharia ran the exploration activities for Total Oil Company, which is the largest oil company in France. Together, they run this company, which maintains the largest database in the world on oil and gas resources and reserves and geology. And if a oil country or an oil company wants to go drill someplace, wants to go try to find more oil, the first place they go is to Petro Consultants and they buy their data, right? Mm-hmm. Once they've done that, then they go off and they try to find stuff, right? It is these people that are saying, we've hit the wall now, right? We are not going to find what you think we're going to find, right? We are not going to produce what you think we're going to produce.
Hawaii imports daily nearly 140,000 barrels of crude oil and 24,000 barrels of refined petroleum products, of which 72% and 79% respectively are from sources outside the United States. Now, on a local level, petroleum-based energy is the lifeblood of Hawaii's economy, accounting this year for nearly 90% of the energy consumed. Hawaii's total energy consumption has increased on average 2.8% a year since 1994, compared to the world's annual average increase of about 1%. This chart illustrates historical and forecast crude oil production for four of the main suppliers of Hawaii's crude oil, namely Alaska, Indonesia, Australia, and China. During 1999, these four supplied nearly 85% of Hawaii's crude oil. Collectively, you can see that they have been declining since the mid-1990s and are projected to continue to do so. With the expected growth in Asian economies and populations, there will be plenty of competition for these supplies. At this time, I would like to just quickly speculate about some of the possible consequences of the near-term peak and the irreversible decline in world oil production. I've already spoke of the oil price shock. This shock is very different from that of the mid-1970s. It is driven by resource constraints, not politics, although, of course, politics do enter into it. The market is beginning to perceive that OPEC may have lost control. It is a devastating realization because it means that there is no supply-based ceiling on price. Accordingly, prices are set to soar. In today's money, oil prices went to almost $100 a barrel during the 1970 shocks. Higher prices will cause a demand for oil to stabilize and then fall. And there is, I think, a danger of an ill-considered military intervention to try and secure oil. A stock market crash seems inevitable with high continued oil prices and the impact that it will have on inflation and interest rates. Energy costs may be a smaller percent of the GNP today than it was at the time of the first oil embargo in '73, but as recent events in Europe have demonstrated, it is a critical percentage. The global market may collapse because of high transportation costs and global recession. I suppose Europe, Asia, and the United States will be on a collision course for access to oil in a world of perceived growing shortage. In short, it will be a time of great international tension and new alignments. Self-sufficiency will become a priority. Of course, production of gas and natural gas liquids and non-conventional deep water, heavy, and polar oils will continue to expand, but in my analyses, they will lessen the decline and will shift the peak by only 5 years. I imagine coal projects will increase and nuclear power will be rejuvenated in many countries. Fuel cells will take off, and of course solar, wind, and ocean-generated power will continue to find niche markets and expand, as you here in Hawaii are most aware. Consumer energy savings will be in vogue again. Buying local produce and manufactured goods will make more sense than importing stuff from halfway around the world. And I suppose there will be another oil exploration boom, but that it will be abortive, finding only small fields having negligible impact on the world, with the Caspian Sea being an exception. Once the moment of truth is realized and that there truly are no more giant fields to be found, major integrated oil companies and independents will accelerate mergers and shrink as their throughput declines. Well, what does all I had to say mean for Hawaii insofar as its energy consumption and policies and economy are concerned? And let me assure you that this slide does not represent an exhaustive list. But by virtue of its nearly unique geographical and political situation and endowment of natural resources, Hawaii is in a position to become a leader, a benchmark state for the stewardship and utilization of energy. Petroleum-based energy costs are inexorably going to increase. Crude oil prices on peak will be as volatile as world stock markets are today. Yes, the price will roller coaster up and down in the interim due to the interplay of politics and market forces. But these are secondary forces, and costs will rise most assuredly, with average costs becoming higher and higher as resource constraints ultimately dominate. On the other hand, Hawaii's per capita energy consumption is nearly, if not the lowest, of the United States, amounting to less than half of the consumption of a Texas resident and only a quarter of the consumption of an Alaskan. Your favorable tropical climate requires relatively little in the way of heating and air conditioning energy requirements. Higher petroleum costs translate to less disposable income and higher airfares for potential tourists. Given the bull market and unprecedented low energy costs of the last 10 years, I have to ask, how will Hawaii's tourist industry fare in a bare or level market and with higher energy costs? The concept of existing state energy conservation tax credits for solar, wind, and thermal energy is to be applauded and further encouraged and extended. Given the necessary lead time, the time has come for increasing the scale of these technologies if they are to ameliorate rising energy costs.
I was just in the Middle East a week ago in Israel and learning about that situation there and all its various levels. At the same time, because of the dramatic increase in fuel oil prices, particularly in the Northeast, Secretary Richardson was there as well on a hastily organized trip. He also took time to go to Mexico to talk to the OPEC countries to try and persuade them to increase their production. I don't think I have to convince you that this is further evidence that we're way too dependent on foreign oil. We import about $50 billion a year, and it's growing. You all know there are other options, and we must redouble our efforts to make those options commercially viable.
See, now what we need to do is to give the same kind of tax breaks to hydrogen and this hydrogen development as we give to ethanol or the oil companies and everything else. They get all these tax write-offs for everything.
I'm part of the core advisory group to the Department of Energy's hydrogen infrastructure task, and we were just meeting yesterday, and one of the topics we came up with is if we could get a time period, 30, 40, 50 years, it's going to take time, where we could guarantee tax-free, but there will be no tax on hydrogen, then the sort of more capital-intensive infrastructure, it will make it easier. And the government, even if we're tremendously successful, which we fully expect to be, the lost revenue will not be very much in the next 30 years. You cannot transform the economy overnight. And so, but what we need are signals from the government to enable this sort of investment to occur.
We would not even have the oil infrastructure we have today if it weren't for intangible drilling costs, rapid write-offs, depletion allowances, all that kind of stuff that we gave the oil companies for years and years and years. I was in Iceland, and I am a personal friend of Olaf Grimsson, who's Prime Minister. And I was in fact, I'm going to see him next month. He's going to be in Washington. And as you know, all of their fixed base energy power plants are all hydrothermal, geothermal energy. The only energy they use that's hydrocarbon-based basically is the transportation.
Yeah. Well,
but there is a great place just to replace the whole thing with because they can make electricity for nothing.
During the past few years, this discussion in Iceland on alternative fuels has mainly revolved around hydrogen as an energy carrier. Following the outcome of a committee established by the former Minister of Industry and Commerce under the chairmanship of Mr. Hjalmar Árnason, Member of Parliament, some large foreign companies have shown interest in cooperating with Icelandic parties in the study of hydrogen. Early last year, Vistorka, an Icelandic private company, together with Daimler Chrysler, Norsk Hydro Production, and Shell International, signed a joint venture agreement on cooperation in this area. Natural conditions in Iceland favor the harnessing of hydropower for the generation of electricity. The hydropower potential is theoretically estimated at about 64 terawatt-hours per year, of which 40 to 45 terawatt-hours per year may be technically and economically feasible. After taking into account environmental aspects, the potential will probably be 25 to 30 terawatt-hours per year. So far, only 6 terawatt-hours per year have been harnessed, or about 20%. An estimate has been made for the geothermal resources. It should be stressed that the geothermal resource is not strictly renewable in the same sense as the hydro resource. An assessment of the total potential for electricity production from the high-temperature geothermal fields in the country gives a value of about 1,500 terawatt-hours, or 15 terawatt-hours per year over a 100-year period. The electricity production capacity from geothermal fields is now only 1.3 terawatt-hours per year. Together with harnessing of the energy potential for economic development in Iceland, there may be 2 more phases in the future, in the next decades rather than years. One is export of electricity by submarine cable. The other is production of alternative fuels such as hydrogen. The option of exporting power by submarine cable has been studied from time to time since the early 50s. The export is now considered technically feasible and on the margin of being economically feasible. The cost of electricity exported to England or the continent of Europe would double from the cost on the shore in Iceland, which supports our policy to produce power-intensive products in the country for export. Some companies, mainly in the power sector in Europe, have shown interest in exploring this option further.
We even talked to people in Hawaii today to make the whole Big Island of Hawaii a hydrogen economy like Iceland. Absolutely. Because they've got all this extra geothermal energy, and we can make connect that to hydrogen cars. So in the Big Island,
where's this?
in Hawaii,
Oh my
the
gosh,
Big Island has only got 40,000 people.
Sure.
It's got 10 megawatts of electricity at night that there's no market for. In fact, they pay you to take it away because of the way geothermal energy is made.
Yeah.
We can collect that renewable, non-exhaustible energy, and we can make fuel. Iceland's talking about having a whole island hydrogen economy. Let's also do it here in the United States.
Gosh, that's just so impressive to see all that power coming out, not using any fossil fuel.
Yes, it is.
It's a wonderful thing. Behind me is the Puna geothermal power plant on the Big Island of Hawaii. And with me is Jack Dean, the former general manager of this facility. Earlier you were telling me that that you have some other interesting personal ventures now in line on geothermal.
Yes.
And not just geothermal.
Yeah, I have a strong belief that the entire state of Hawaii can be powered with renewable energy. And the renewable energy sources are obviously geothermal, but also solar and wind. And I have an interest in all three of those renewable energy sources.
And then once you have the electricity, what's the next step?
Well, once you have the electricity, especially if you have an abundance of it, such as I just mentioned, you're able to either power the grid and supply local power for homes and businesses, etc., or you can make an alternate fuel, such as hydrogen. And with the vastness of the megawatt capability of the Big Island, hydrogen is a very natural as the prime target for the renewable energy market. On the Big Island, the grid system has a max of about 180 megawatts. So if you look at the wind capacity, the solar, and by solar I mean photovoltaic, the photovoltaic capability of this island, coupled with geothermal, it's far in excess of this grid system on this island. So the natural, as I said, is to make hydrogen with that huge excess and use it on the other islands, as well as using it for transportation here on this island.
Right. With fuel cells? Or?
With fuel cells, with some internal combustion engines.
Burning it.
But burning the hydrogen, using it to make electricity or for propulsion of some sort.
And how do you see the hydrogen being transported from the source to the homes or the factories?
Yeah, there are several ways that the transportation is available. One obviously is similar to the natural gas pipelines like they have in the mainland, and that would be to put a network of hydrogen pipelines here on each of the islands. Another way could be transporting it by truck in spheres or other pressure vessels, either as a liquid or as a vapor, and that could be distributed to businesses, to homes, to anyone that has a need for the hydrogen, even the labs like at the university and things of that nature. In addition, my vision is that someday we'll be transporting the hydrogen from the Big Island to the other islands, and this can easily be accomplished with a tanker type ship.
Do you think the tanker ship would be carrying liquid or compressed?
I think that would be an economic decision that would have to be made at the time, but if you go back to the 70s when they were running liquefied natural gas from Africa, that typically was liquefied, and they were in giant LNG tankers. So I see something similar to that as feasible here in Hawaii, perhaps not as large of vessels, but still the same general concept where it could transport it from, say, an offshore buoy here on the Big Island to an offshore buoy, say at Barber's Point on Oahu, or to Maui or to Kauai, or any of the other islands for that matter.
Do you have a gut feeling from your work on this plant and what's involved in the drilling and the other equipment of how the costs might compare? Is this a viable venture?
Yes, it is. Geothermal is very viable. In the early days, it was rather costly, partly due to the lack of scientific data, very sophisticated measuring means. Also, the industry was very young, and so there were lots of learning curves that had to be overcome. But nowadays, it's relatively well known. The drilling companies, as well as the developing companies, they have a good feel for what's needed.
If there are no hurdles and each of these increments can come into place quickly, then we're looking at a very substantial increase by the end of this decade.
Yes, we are, Tom.
Just in time for fuel cell cars?
Oh, very much so.
Really?
Very much so, yeah. If you think of the fuel cell cars coming, there will be a few available by the year 2003, 2004. As you know, General Motors and others are working in that vein. And if you look at the prototypes that are coming out and being displayed to the public, you know, it really excites you how fast they're moving in this vein. And easily by the end of the decade, the fuel cell cars could be something that everybody could afford. And you'll probably still have to stand in line and wait for them, you know.
Yeah,
but
I hope so.
yes, we sure do.
Yeah.
But the beauty of that is that unlike the mainland, where they will go through a transition using gasoline and natural gas, we really won't have to do that here in Hawaii. With the abundance of renewable energy that can easily be converted to hydrogen, as I mentioned earlier, through photovoltaic, wind, and geothermal, we will be producing the prime fuel for fuel cells, for fuel cell cars, for fuel cells for your homes and your factories and your businesses, the hotels here. You know, the list goes on and on. And the nice thing is that we here in Hawaii can produce our own fuel. We don't have to import the fuel. If anything, someday we hope to export fuel.
Right.
And it would be wonderful for the headlines to read one day, State of Hawaii exports energy, exports the hydrogen to Japan, to California perhaps, and you know, to other places. And I think that's definitely a vision that I have, and I think it's very, very doable for us. We need to start making those kinds of preparations now. We have a golden opportunity here in this state. I firmly believe in what we're doing, and I know that we in Hawaii can make a significant difference. We can be a model for the rest of the world. It just takes us to have the initiative and the will and the drive to move forward.
Today really represents a quantum leap both in technology and in our efforts to keep our air clean here in the city of Los Angeles. As I'm sure many of you know, we've been a leader in making sure that our vehicles are clean. In fact, by early next year, we'll have one of the largest municipal fleets of clean air vehicles in the nation. And today represents another step in that progression toward having the cleanest clean air fleet in the nation. On behalf of the City of Los Angeles and Honda Motor Corporation, let me thank you all for coming here today. And it is my great, great pleasure to introduce the mayor of the greatest city in America, the Honorable James Kenneth Hahn.
Thanks, Brian. Good afternoon. What a beautiful day here in Los Angeles with beautiful blue skies. Blue skies that we want to keep blue. And today's a historical day for our city. I see the vehicle lined up here. The FCX fuel cell car has arrived here in Los Angeles. We're very excited that Los Angeles is the first city in the nation to enter this new era of transportation with our contract for these low pollution vehicles. Especially want to thank Honda Motor Company and its president and CEO, Mr. Hiroyuki Yoshino, for granting Los Angeles access to this new technology and for accompanying us this afternoon as Honda delivers the first fuel cell car in the nation. Councilman Eric Garcetti just informed me that Mr. Yoshino actually had a press conference earlier today in Japan. And so it's his second press conference, second drive of the day, and here he is driving this great new car. You know, fuel cells have been around for decades. They've been used in our spacecraft. They produce hydrogen and oxygen as their byproduct. As you all know, hydrogen and oxygen and a famous formula H2O make water. So that's the byproduct of the fuel cell technology. I see on the sticker, Mr. Yoshino, it says it gets 51 miles per gallon, which is shows the economy of this great vehicle. Come on up here, Mr. Yoshino. Currently, we're working with Honda and Air Products as the official hydrogen supplier to the city, working with LADWP. We're going to be working with them to see how we can use these vehicles and hopefully expand our use of these exciting new vehicles in Los Angeles. We have 217 hybrid vehicles in the city fleet, and we're increasing our percentage of the fleet that operates with liquid natural and compressed natural gas to 17% of our fleet using LNG, 13% of our fleet CNG. And now with the delivery of our Honda FCX fuel cell vehicle, we're showing the world that Los Angeles again is taking the lead in protecting our environment. We remain committed to improving air quality in Los Angeles. We want to improve the air quality and the health for our citizens. I know that our city employees, I'm very enthusiastic to learn about how the fuel cell car operation works. We want to get on the road for a cleaner, brighter Los Angeles. We certainly look forward to working with Honda on projects that will reduce emissions in Los Angeles. And by the way, Mr. Yoshino, I want to thank Honda for your contribution to our LA's Best after-school program, an important part of improving the quality of life for our students in Los Angeles. I met 3 young people today who got to go to space camp because they won the science fair, which Honda helps sponsor every year with our after-school program. Now I want to introduce a tireless traveler who I think is spending one of the longest Mondays of his life today with the press conferences in Japan and Los Angeles. A real forward thinker, someone who has been working on developing cleaner vehicles for over 30 years, a real pioneer in improving air quality and improving the emissions of automobiles, the president and CEO of Honda Motor Company, Mr. Hiroyuki Yoshino.
Thank you. Before making a speech, I'd like to deliver the key to the mayor.
Thank you.
For the car.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Mayor Han. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here today to deliver to Mayor Han and the City of Los Angeles the first fuel cell vehicle certified for commercial use in the United States, the Honda FCX. Just a few hours ago, I was in Japan to deliver an FCX model to the Prime Minister of Japan. Unfortunately, I cannot personally deliver vehicles to every Honda customer. But my long journey to be with you today is symbolic of the journey to develop a viable fuel cell vehicle and of our determination to succeed on this path. Los Angeles and the state of California have long played a leadership role in the search for cleaner transportation. Honda, too, has long been committed to the introduction of innovative technology that reduces emissions and lessens the impact of the automobile on the environment, while still meeting the needs of our customers. In the early 1970s, I was part of a team challenged to develop a new engine that made Honda the only company to achieve the U.S. Clean Air Act based solely on engine technology. What all of us learned as engineers was the important commitment we must make to the environment and to the independent development of fundamental technologies. Even today, this commitment serves as the foundation for our leadership in developing vehicles with low emissions, high fuel efficiency, and outstanding performance. We believe the fuel cell vehicle fueled by hydrogen has great promise to eliminate emissions and greatly reduce our dependence on gasoline. Honda began to explore fuel cell technologies in 1986, and our participation in California Fuel Cell Partnership starting in 2000 really accelerated the development. We are encouraged by the progress of our fuel cell program. The Honda FCX is not just the only fuel cell vehicle certified for everyday use in the United States by the California Air Resources Board and the EPA. The FCX has successfully completed the most extensive series of crash tests for a fuel cell vehicle conducted anywhere in the world with front, rear, side, and offset barrier tests. This is a real-world vehicle, and we look forward to working with the City of Los Angeles and its employees to learn more about the FCX in real-world driving conditions. As has been widely discussed, an infrastructure for hydrogen fueling is a key challenge for fuel cell vehicles to become practical. Honda has been working on this issue too. We have opened our own unique solar-powered hydrogen fuel station at Honda R&D in Torrance to help address the question of infrastructure development. Also, like Mayor Han, Honda is happy to work with another company with operations based in Southern California, Air Products, to begin the establishment of a hydrogen fueling infrastructure support system.
Good morning. My name is Irv Miller, Group Vice President of Corporate Communications for Toyota Motor Sales USA. And on behalf of the global Toyota organization, I welcome you to this historic occasion. Today is the first step toward the popularization of a technology that promises to someday create a fossil fuel-free society, starting right here in California. Toyota is pleased to deliver the first market-ready hydrogen fuel cell vehicles for lease in the state of California. The first customers are the University of California, Davis and the University of California, Irvine. These two vehicles will be joined by 4 more Toyota fuel cell SUVs later next year. Each vehicle will be leased for 30 months. Today's delivery is the first step in a plan to establish California as the home of fuel cell partnership communities, combining government, business, and higher education to tackle product infrastructure and consumer acceptance challenges. As you will hear from our partners today, none of this will be accomplished by any one company or any one industry. It will take a heroic, cooperative effort linking diverse disciplines. Norihiko Nakamura is the Executive Technical Advisor for Toyota Motor Corporation in Japan, which has created this exciting and entirely proprietary fuel cell technology. Mr. Nakamura.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Good morning. My name is Norihiko Nakamura, responsible for fuel cell development at Toyota Motor Corporation. 10 years ago, TMC began the development of a fully functional, practical, safe, and reliable hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. I'd like to tell you about our views on its development and explain the reasons why Toyota decided to introduce a fuel cell vehicle to the market at this time. We have been developing the core components such as the fuel cell stack using in-house technology, and the hybrid technologies of the Prius are also adapted. Regarding the high voltage system, we adopted technologies learned from the development of both electric as well as hybrid vehicles. As for the high pressure gas system, we use advanced technologies that we developed for high pressure natural gas vehicles. Toyota has also paid special attention to the safety features of the FCHV. The vehicle is equipped with double or triple sensor systems to detect the hydrogen leakages. Today in California and earlier today in Japan, we have presented the first truly market-ready example of a technology that will change the course of the auto industry. Regarding fuel cell development, the establishment of social infrastructure for hydrogen, production, transport, and supply is just as important as the development of fuel cell technology itself. Hydrogen can be produced from various energy sources, giving us the flexibility to choose the best method of production by considering the well-to-well total efficiency. We need a long-term plan of collaborative effort between governments and industries and the consensus from the stakeholders. But for all of its attributes, it is not a vehicle that will be available at Toyota dealers anytime soon. Before that can happen, we must address the three primary challenges. They include further product refinement, addressing operational logistic issues, and creating customer confidence and acceptance. Then why we are introducing it now? We believe this market introduction is an important initiative to promote a hydrogen society. We are hoping that the small step we take today will help to eventually create a large trend, and in the future we will witness a shift to a worldwide hydrogen society. Thank you.
In a way, I think that this could be one of those historic moments when people look back. It's all right, you don't have to move the teleprompter. They're trying to figure out where I'm going here. Where people look back at those old photographs of when things happened and they wanted to see who was there. I mean, can you imagine those that were there watching the first flight at Kitty Hawk when the Wright brothers took flight? They were in the audience like you, and how many of them could imagine at that time, in that day, with that technology, what we would be doing 100 years later in airplanes? And I think in a way, this first delivery has that potential of having that kind of impact on society. Now, my role here is I'm the last batter, so I guess they'd call me the cleanup person. But really this morning, that's what we're all doing here. Together we're working to clean up the environment. That's what this is about. And Toyota is extremely pleased to play the lead role in this effort. I think the most important point to remember about what we've heard today is that this really is a community effort. It will take the entire community, business, education, government, all of us, to carry us into a fossil-free age. The end of the carbon-based age, the beginning of a fossil-free age. And obviously California is the ideal community for this event. For more than 30 years, I've seen the auto industry struggle our government struggle, research institutes like the university struggle with the dilemma of providing transportation freedom for millions of people on Earth, meeting our customers' needs, wants, and desires without hurting the Earth or depleting its resources. We've been struggling with this and have not been able to find a solution until today. It's nice to know that the real answer will not come from just one company or one effort or one institution or the magic silver bullet, this great breakthrough that will save the day. But rather it's the result of what we all knew in our hearts and our minds all along, isn't it? If we work together and help each other, we can accomplish almost anything if it's our priority. And obviously, society requires this to be our priority. And that's what you're seeing today. This is the action. It's a partnership of people who want to change the world for the better and pass it on so the earth and all of our lives will be better over time. Now, every journey starts with a first small step. Today, that's our step. We're taking that step together. After a year and a half of on-road vehicle testing in California and in Japan, and with the commitments of our partners at the customer and infrastructure level, this is the right time to put the stake in the ground. This is the place where we begin that long march toward a clean, fossil-free age and a transportation system that will revolutionize the future. And Mr. Nakamura said it well when he said that there are many challenges and a long road ahead until we see fuel cell vehicles at your neighborhood Toyota dealerships. And you heard Cynthia Verdugo-Pirella talk about how the transportation industry is both a blessing and a challenge for the state of California. These communities will bless the state by making vehicles cleaner and renewable fuels. And they will encourage other partners to join the effort because there is true hope for a real solution. We heard Cynthia say, in effect, that we will solve the great chicken or the egg problem by building a cooperative network of fueling stations that can keep hydrogen-fueled vehicles running in ever wider areas all around the state. And we thank the Air Quality Management Districts, Stewart Energy, and Air Products, key partners in this venture, because they're creating the infrastructure that will someday help us celebrate that golden spike that will link Northern and Southern California together with a new hydrogen highway. It kind of reminds me of during my childhood, you know, you'd read Popular Science magazine or some of those, and they talked about that pill you put in water and it turned into gasoline, or turning water into energy in the distant future. Well, guess what? That future is today. Stewart Energy's fueling posts are a great example. They literally turn tap water into energy that drives this car. And the only emission is water vapor. That's right, you drive your fuel cell car up to the gas station, you put the nozzle in the tank, the system uses electricity to convert water into hydrogen and oxygen on demand. It's kind of like a fuel cell in reverse. And if the electricity used is generated from renewable sources like solar or wind or geothermal, well, guess what? The whole fuel-making process is fossil-free. It produces no harmful emissions, and it creates a circle of sustainable growth. The ultimate goal for a cleaner, safer, healthier Earth. We heard our chancellors from the University of California tell you how their important research into real-world driving will help us further improve these vehicles and the ways that they will operate in both today's and tomorrow's world. The university's strong commitment to expanding these pioneer fuel cell communities is a vital step in creating the tomorrow that we all desire, that we must have. And Toyota has a long relationship with the UC system. We've contributed numerous grants in this area. Over the last 5 years, Toyota has provided more than about $2 million in fuel cell research grants to the UC. And with this latest initiative, that amount will more than double over the next 30 months. Now, as for the fuel cell vehicles themselves, well, what can I tell you? They're Toyotas. It's the #1 selling automobile in the state of California. Of course that's where we are. We've put the full force of our renowned design and production systems behind these cars, and the technology is entirely Toyota's. So I can promise you they're reliable and the quality is unbeatable. The Toyota fuel cell hybrid vehicles that you'll see here today represent a decade of work, more than billions of dollars of research, hundreds and thousands of hours of lab and road tests. These cars are quiet. They can reach speeds of up to 96 miles per hour. Now you can take that 96 miles per hour to the bank because obviously engineers said that. A sales guy would say nearly 100 miles an hour. They've got a range of up to 180 miles on a tank of hydrogen. And thanks to today's high-pressure storage technology, the tanks are as benign and safe as the tanks I use when I go scuba diving. Toyota's fuel cell hybrid system is highly efficient because it uses the latest in hybrid electric technology that we've gained by 5 years of marketing the Toyota Prius, the world's first mass-produced electric gas hybrid vehicle. With more than 100,000 Prius sedans on the roads around the world, we know a lot about how to conserve energy from a car in motion. And by using the Prius nickel metal hydride battery pack and the regenerative braking system, we not only capture normally lost energy when the vehicle comes to a stop, but then we apply that energy to boost the fuel cell output on demand. And combining Toyota's hybrid technology with a fuel cell energy source combines high efficiency with high performance. There's no reason something clean to drive can't also be a dream to drive. And considering that their ultra-advanced technology is as rare as a Mickey Mantle rookie card, they're definitely state-of-the-art. But in the Toyota way of continuous improvement, we know we can and that we will make them better. And that's where the university and our other partners will be invaluable in this venture. So when you put together all of the pieces and partners that we've talked about here this morning, you end up with an amazing result. A highly organized and passionate and committed community that has the power to be much, much more than the sum of its parts. California today, tomorrow the world. Our goal is that these two fuel cell communities in Northern and Southern California will foster others and eventually connect in a statewide network. And that bellwether network will spawn others that will continue to interconnect until one day it will all come together to create a global internet of fuel cell vehicles, an infrastructure that will believe us and allow us to enter a true fossil-free age. And we know that can and that will happen. And today, we're taking the first step. In a few moments, these keys will not only put the first fuel cell vehicles on the road with real customers, they will unlock a cleaner, brighter future for the world and all mankind. I thank you very much.
My name is Kevin Casey, and I'm the Vice President and General Manager of Transportation for Stewart Energy. What we have here is Stewart Energy's station on wheels. It's an entire electrolytic-based hydrogen generation station that's completely transportable. It's permanently mounted aboard a flatbed trailer. And the major components of this system are, first of all, the electrolyzer itself. This box here contains all the devices required to convert water and electricity into hydrogen. And their oxygen is also produced as a byproduct, which is vented. The hydrogen, we take in water and electricity, convert it to hydrogen. The hydrogen is then processed further in the box where we purify, dry out the gas, and compress it to the levels that are required for a fuel cell vehicle. This particular unit will go up to, can compress up to 6,000 psi. So coming out of here, out of this end of the electrolyzer box is the hydrogen gas, which then goes into storage. Now this allows us to produce hydrogen any time of day or night. Usually we would choose to produce it when during off-peak hours where there's a lot of excess capacity and electricity rates are lower. We produce the hydrogen and we store it in here. And this box contains cylinders similar to the ones that fuel cell vehicles use on board the vehicles themselves. These cylinders are pressurized to 6,000 psi. This particular system will hold about 48 kilograms, and the average fuel cell car would probably take about 3 to 4 kilograms to fill. Now the last phase of the fueling process happens when a vehicle pulls up and needs to be fueled. You would get out of your car, open the fueling receptacle, take a hose from the dispenser, connect it to the receptacle. It's a simple matter of just flicking a lever on the receptacle, on the nozzle itself, and then going and turning a lever on the dispenser itself, and at which point the flow of hydrogen will begin. And the main function of the dispenser is to control the flow of hydrogen from the storage bank here into the storage aboard the car. And the whole process should take about the same amount of time as it would for you to fill up a gasoline car today.